These findings are deeply disturbing, but most disturbing of all, as Baroness Casey makes clear, is the fact that too many of these findings are not new. The House will be aware that on Friday, 7 men were found guilty of the most horrendous crimes in Rochdale between 2000 and 2006. They were convicted of treating teenage girls as sex slaves, repeatedly raping them in filthy flats, alleyways and warehouses. The perpetrators included taxi drivers and market traders of Pakistani heritage, and it has taken 20 years to bring them to justice. I want to pay tribute to the incredible bravery of the women who told their stories and have fought for justice through all those years. They should never have been let down for so long. The sexual exploitation of children by grooming gangs is one of the most horrific crimes. Children as young as 10 plied with drugs and alcohol, brutally raped by gangs of men and disgracefully let down again and again by the authorities who were meant to protect them and keep them safe. And these despicable crimes have caused the most unimaginable harm to victims and survivors throughout their lives and are a stain on our society. I told Parliament in January I expected Baroness Casey to deliver the same kind of impactful and no-holds-barred report that she produced on Rotherham in 2015, so we never shy away from the reality of these terrible crimes. And I am very grateful to Louise and her team that they have done exactly that. The findings of her audit are damning. At its heart, she identifies a deep-rooted failure to treat children as children. A continued failure to protect children and teenage girls from rape, from exploitation and serious violence, and from the scars that last a lifetime. She finds too much fragmentation in the authorities' response, too little sharing of information, too much reliance on flawed data, too much denial, too little justice, too many criminals getting off, too many victims being let down. The audit describes victims as young as 10, often those in care, or children with learning or physical disabilities, being singled out for grooming precisely because of their vulnerability. Perpetrators still walking free because no one joined the dots, or because the law ended up protecting them instead of the victims that they had exploited. Deep-rooted institutional failures, stretching back decades where organisations who should have protected children and punished offenders looked the other way. And Baroness Casey found blindness, ignorance, prejudice, defensiveness, and even good but misdirected intentions all played a part in this collective failure. And on the key issues of ethnicity that I'd asked her to examine, she has found continued failure to gather proper, robust national data, despite concerns being raised going back very many years. In the local data that the audit examined from 3 police forces, they identify clear evidence of overrepresentation among suspects of Asian and Pakistani heritage men, and she refers to examples of organisations avoiding the topic altogether for fear of appearing racist or raising community tensions. These findings are deeply disturbing, but most disturbing of all, as Baroness Casey makes clear, is the fact that too many of these findings are not new.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's handling of this scandal is an extraordinary failure of leadership. His judgment has once again been found wanting. Since he became Prime Minister, he and the Home Secretary dismissed calls for an inquiry because they did not want to cause a stir. They accused those of us demanding justice for the victims of this scandal as, and I quote, jumping on a far-right bandwagon. Yes. A claim the Prime Minister's official spokesman restated this weekend. Shameful. It has been left to Conservatives time and time again to force this issue. 3 times, Mr. Speaker. 3 times. They can mutter now. They all mutter now. 3 times, Mr. Speaker, these Labour MPs voted against the national inquiry. They voted against it 3 times. Liberal Democrats didn't bother to vote at all, asleep at the wheel. Labour MPs voted against a reasoned amendment to the Children's Bill. Point and shout as much as they like. They know the truth as we on the side of the House do. Yes. 3 times. I will repeat myself, Mr. Speaker, 3 times. Labour MPs voted against the Reason Amendment to the Children's Bill. At committee stage of that bill, they voted against. At committee stage of the Crime and Policing Bill, they voted against a national inquiry. And at Prime Minister's questions, the Prime Minister repeatedly ruled out a national inquiry to the chairs of all of these Labour MPs who are now pretending this is what they believed all along.
I don't think she can have read this report and the seriousness of its conclusions, because it sets out a timeline of failure from 2009 to 2025. Repeated reports and recommendations that were not acted on child protection, on police investigations, on ethnicity data, on data sharing, on support for victims. For 14 of those 16 years, her party was in government, including years when she was the Minister for Children and Families, then the Minister for Equalities, covering race and ethnicity issues and violence against women and girls. And I didn't hear her raise any of these issues until January of this year. She will know the Prime Minister didn't just raise them, he acted on them, bringing the first prosecutions against grooming gangs, calling for action to address ethnicity issues in 2012. And she will know that the Safeguarding Minister and I have raised these issues repeatedly. She referred to the Professor Alexis J. independent inquiry into child sexual abuse. I called for and strongly supported that inquiry, and also on a cross-party basis. We wanted that inquiry to work and supported its conclusions. But her party did absolutely nothing to implement those conclusions. Time and again, recommendations just sitting on the shelf. And it has taken this government now to bring forward the mandatory duty to report. And she says that we should ensure that people who have engaged in cover-ups should be prosecuted. I agree, and that is why this party is changing the law to make that possible, so that cover-ups cannot happen and so that people are held to account. She'll also know that the votes she's referred to, what she wanted to do, and the amendment she put forward, would have wrecked the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill. The very bill which includes 2 of Baroness Casey's recommendations strengthening child protection, recommendations that she and her party refused to introduce over 14 years. And I am sorry that she chose not to join in the apology to victims and survivors for decades of failure that was a cross-party apology in 2022. And it should be again if she really had victims' interests and the national interest at heart.